Hey everyone, so 2022 was a pretty big year for the Black Series. We got a ton of releases. I have over an hour and 15 minutes of content recapping everything that came out in 2022, so go check out those videos if you would like to see more about that. And I do think that the Black Series is doing really well lately. I think they have been putting out some really incredible figures, especially the most recent wave. So this is by no means an anti-Black Series rant. I really love this line, if you couldn't tell from my channel. But I want to talk about the disappointments of the past year. So all of the things that we kind of hoped that would come out, that we would get, that just didn't come to fruition. So this isn't like a wish list of characters that I wish we had seen necessarily, because, you know, we still might be getting those eventually. This is more like figures that were actually released in a way that just left a lot of people a little underwhelmed, or certain things that we've had a really good feeling that we would be getting in 2022 for certain reasons that we just didn't. So we'll go into all of that in this video. The footage you're seeing right now is from my Book of Boba Fett shelf series, which features a lot of customs and that sort of thing, so you can go check out the video if you would like to see more of these. I just needed some footage to go along with my talking here. I'm also not going to talk about the credit collection or the carbonized collection, because I think, you know, everyone's pretty much in agreement on that, or, you know, we've talked about that enough just in general. So, you know, I don't love the credit collection. I find them kind of, I find them kind of disappointing as a release. I think there's a lot of cooler things that we can get instead, but we'll ignore that for this video as well. So one of my biggest disappointments this year was the Wandering Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, the Reva figure that we got in the Black Series was just so incredible, and so many of the other figures, like the Fifth Brother, the Grand Inquisitor, like the engineering and the tooling on these is so nice that it was kind of a bummer that we didn't get a newly tooled Obi-Wan that just was higher quality, you know, actually looked like the actor. Even Ewan McGregor himself made a joke about it.
I don't know if it's just me, like, they scan you, you know, they have these machines that, like, they read your body, and your every data point in your being is recorded, and then still it somehow doesn't quite look like it. You know what I mean? And then still.
And yeah, so basically, do you see like the way the chest is just painted and it's a completely different color than his neck? And with the exception of pinless joints, I just felt like, I don't know, this figure just felt like it could have come out 5 years ago rather than in 2022. And I think overall it is a compliment to the Black Series that even when we do have a fairly decent figure like this, it still feels like a disappointment compared to how good some of the other figures are that are coming out. One of the other figures that kind of disappointed me was Omega from the Bad Batch. You know, we were pretty sure we were going to get this figure because we got all of the other members of the Bad Batch, but this is just her like episode 1 appearance with that little thing on her forehead. And in most of the series, you know, she doesn't look like that. She looks a little bit older, her hair's a little bit messier, and she doesn't have that on her forehead. So it's kind of hard to recreate any scenes from the Bad Batch Season 1 with the figure that we got. The good news is, though, that we are getting an Omega from Season 2, which hopefully will have this hat maybe removable. Maybe that's a bit much to ask. I think her outfit just looks a lot cooler. It's a lot more action-focused, and I think it'll just fit in a little bit more nicely with the Bad Batch. And we will probably also get the Bad Batch in their repainted uniforms here. It just seems like a no-brainer, and they did cancel the re-release of the Hunter figure, and so I'm thinking that maybe they're pushing him, you know, using that mold to make his Season 2 appearance instead. Another hugely disappointing figure was the Black Krrsantan in the comic book packaging. You know, we are getting a Book of Boba Fett fully retooled deluxe Black Krrsantan in 2023, so we do know that now. At the time, we didn't know that. So we thought that this was the BK figure that we were going to be getting, and even still, I think a lot of more care could have gone into this to make it feel a little bit more like the character. It still just looks like a Chewbacca figure dipped in oil. So even in the comic book packaging, I still think that this is a disappointing release. So another release that has been talked to death has been the Delta Squad. The Hunter body from the Bad Batch was reused to make these, and in the game they are much beefier, much larger, and these just look kind of like skinny versions of these characters that just feel kind of cheap. And we understand that these aren't the most popular characters, you know, they weren't mainline releases. These were just released at GameStop and are still sitting on those pegs. However, this is just a body that, you know we could have used at least 4 times, if not 5 or 6 if you include some of like the plain white clone commandos. You know, there's some Battlefront variants. There's just a lot of usage that we could have gotten out of a proper, larger commando body, but I guess that just isn't in the budget these days with the cost of plastic and new tooling. But yeah, these were just kind of overall a bit of a disappointment, but it's nice that we got these characters at all, and if that's the only way to get them, then this is better than nothing. So one of the other disappointments of 2022 was that it was the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones, and within the Star Wars collecting fandom, there is a lot of prequel nostalgia, especially for this era, and we pretty much had radio silence from Hasbro about this, and Hot Toys definitely stepped up to the plate. And, these figures take just as long to produce as Black Series figures, from what I understand. And so, we aren't seeing these until next year. However, there was just so much offered and revealed for this. And in the Black Series, there is a consolation, however, because they announced that they're doing a 20th anniversary of Clone Wars, which is technically 2023. And that will include a lot of often wished for figures, such as Ahsoka Tano from Season 3 of the Clone Wars, the Magna Guard, the Phase 2 Clone Trooper, as well as some other releases which are yet to be announced. To be fair, we did get a lot of Attack of the Clones figures a couple years ago, and kind of given Hasbro's release schedule, it almost seemed like these were going to be re-released in, some Attack of the Clones commemorative packaging. But, given the release schedule, this coming out in 2022 means they would have had to start this in 2020. And we all know that that was a very intense year for manufacturing and production and all of that. So maybe this 20th anniversary of the Clone Wars is just kind of a way to push everything by a year, catch up and do things the right way. So I hope with that we see a lot of Attack of the Clones love from Hasbro as well as Clone Wars during this 20th anniversary year. And I do think that a Clone Wars anniversary actually encompasses a wider range of figures that would be really cool to get rather than just a strictly Attack of the Clones era celebration. So back to disappointing releases, the Grogu that we got in the main line was, severely overpriced, and at Celebration, they told us that this was going to come with an alternate head with closed eyes. It did not. The worst part was they said that it would be hidden in the packaging, so I literally bought this figure expecting a second head, and it just wasn't in the box. The pram was really nice, and, there's nothing wrong with this figure itself, but all of this could have been, we've seen it in build-up packs before with The Mandalorian, and I just think there was such an opportunity here for some really cool and rare world-building accessories for the Black Series. Maybe the little pot that Grogu hides in, or some of the creatures he interacts with. I don't know, just something that makes this feel like it's worth a full price figure. I want to talk about the Archive line. So the Archive is a great way to re-release older figures in packaging that differentiates it from the original releases, so those can still hold some of their value. And overall, they do a pretty good job of character selection. And we did get some new tooling in the latest wave with Bush and Han Solo, which is really amazing because we got a new head for Han and new legs for Bush just to make those a little bit more screen accurate. But then in the latest wave, we got Lando in his Skiff Guard outfit. There's just absolutely no reason for this figure to have been re-released. It, it's coming out in the 40th anniversary packaging, so it's just a third release when it was still available in retail in its original packaging. And then this Obi-Wan Kenobi, this figure is almost 10 years old. Actually, it is 10 years old. And this needs to be just a character that is re-released in the main line. It is one of the most popular looks for one of the most popular characters. You can't just slap a new coat of paint on the face. I mean, yeah, these didn't have any trouble selling. I never saw one of these in stores, but at the same time, I think that just goes to show that it would have been worth the new tooling and just to, get like a really nice new basic Jedi body out into the line with the 2022 engineering. And with the Bush Leia, they showed us that they're willing to go back and alter older sculpts slightly, so they can still use a lot of the old tooling, but just make something that, kind of makes a little bit more sense. So I wish we had seen that done with the X-Wing Luke body for Antok Merrick, just to make him a little bit taller. The Antok Merrick figure that was released on the really short Luke body just doesn't really cut it. He just stands so short on the shelf, and it would have been nice to have, just some extended legs there, to have just some variety in the pilots on the shelf, and then they could have reused that body in the future, or we could have, done some head swaps here and there, just had a little bit more diversity on the shelf. Earlier this year, Hot Toys revealed this gorgeous black Boba Fett in his arena suit from the comic books, and everyone just went nuts. This looked so cool. And then Hasbro revealed theirs, and it was just really disappointing. They used the Empire Strikes Back body, which is very dated and older, and then this just lacked so much of the, sexiness of the suit, the shiny black armor. This literally just looks like it was dipped in paint. There's no, it's like we've seen that carbonized technology. We've seen them actually, making figures shiny when we don't want them to. And then this one comes out with just a matte finish, just looking very plain and boring. And also the packaging, it was our first convention plastic free packaging. It just looks super cheap and, just pretty much a bummer all around of a release. So if you watched Andor, you know that the finale on Ferrix with these guys and their shields and batons was such a highlight of the episode, that little showdown that they had with the people of Ferrix. And this release was it looks pretty good, but it was a disappointment because it did not come with any of the batons and the shields that really, I don't think we ever see these guys without those. So I went ahead and made my own. These files are available to download on my Patreon. They can print in resin or PLA. I painted these and used a little piece of the Black Series plastic window in order to make the plexiglass part there. The batons are also included, and I just painted those up with some silver paint. They super elevate the figures and just really make them look like what they should have been. And, maybe Hasbro didn't know about the shields when they got the concept art for this, or they just needed a cheap way to get this figure back out and that body that we've seen like 100 times. And I think the biggest disappointment of the year was the Selfie Series. So this was just like a highly promoted way of getting an action figure of yourself using 3D scans and custom 3D printed heads. It sounded really cool and a really affordable way to get customs in ways that you wouldn't normally be able to get. But I'd say 9 out of the 10 people that I saw posting their Selfie Series either were completely disappointed with them, or just felt like they had to do a lot of additional customizing, or just give it a second go. A lot of the skin tones were way off because I think people were like doing their scans in certain environments and they were just sampling the skin tones based on the lighting in the room instead of making a guess at what the actual skin tone was. So a lot of people's skin tones were coming out way darker than their actual skin. This is my friend Nate from Out of the Basement, an amazing YouTube channel that you should check out. You can go see his review of the Selfie Series. I think he was one of the ones that actually came out fairly decently, but you'll have to go check out the Out of the Basement channel to see that full review. My final gripe for 2022 was the prices. The Black Series prices have just shot up all across the board. We are seeing, gaming grades figures going for over $30 after you pay taxes, plus, another $6 shipping if you're ordering from GameStop online. We were seeing figures retailing for about $17.50 at Walmart for mainline figures, and then, a little bit higher elsewhere, but around $19.99 all across the board. And now Black Series figures are just, $28 straight off the retail rack. And then I think because of that, we've seen so much going on clearance this past year. I'm really interested to see where the Black Series is going to land. I think we saw a boom in collecting during the pandemic. By the way, this footage is from Frank and Son's Collectibles Show in California. I have a full video tour of this place on my channel if you would like to watch that as well. But yeah, collecting just kind of exploded during the pandemic, and I think that, after it was so hard to get stuff into production for so long, they just maybe overdid some of the quantities of a lot of these figures, and now we're seeing stuff just heavily discounted. I hope that, it's not a sign that the Black Series is dying. I hope it's just a sign of overproduction, and that overall we're still, ahead as a line, because I really just don't have any plans to stop collecting anytime soon, and I would love to see as many releases next year. And, this was a 15-minute video of just me complaining the whole time about stuff that I didn't like, but overall, if you watch my channel, you know that I really love the Black Series, and I often just have only positive things to say about it, or just often very positive things to say about it. But yeah, I hope to see the Black Series continue in an upward direction. I'm very curious to hear from you guys in the comments below about what disappointed you this year. Was there anything that really bummed you out that I forgot to include on the list here? And the good news is we have a ton to look forward to in 2023, so I have a whole video covering that as well on my channel if you want to see just everything that we already know is confirmed for 2023. And then of course there are plenty more releases that we have not heard about yet. So anyway, click that like button if you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you would like to see more content from me regarding the Black Series, and I'll see you guys all next time.